Recently, RBI has released its RBI Annual Report 2024 and 2025. So, according to this report, bank frauds is reduced, but the amount involved in these type of frauds are increased. So, let us discuss about the surge in bank fraud values. Welcome to our channel Adva Academy. This RBI's Annual Report 2024 and 2025 give us a insight about the financial year 2025 fraud, especially a financial year 2025 bank frauds. So, first of all, let us discuss the significance of the bank frauds in the fewer cases according to this report. First of all, when we consider a number of cases is reduced, which is nothing but when we compare to 2024. In the year 2024, there was a detected bank frauds. The number is 36,060. But in the year 2025, it is reduced, which means that number of cases reduced to 23,953. But the amount involved in these cases are raised, which is increased. So, monetary value, we call in a technical term we call it as a monetary value. In these cases, the monetary value is increased 194%, which is nothing but 36,060 cases involved 12,230 crore amount, and 23,953 cases involved 36,014 crore 14 crore rupees. Here, when we see closely, here the number of cases are reduced, correct, which is nothing but the detection of the cases, and also internal controlling measures are increased. However, this report clearly shows that the monetary value increased, which is nothing but this decrease in frequency was overshadowed by the steep rise in value, which exposed critical gaps in large value transaction, especially in the loan portfolio. So now, let us discuss how the nature and sectoral distribution of frauds involved in 2025. Over 36,014 crore rupees, the fraud which was reported in financial 2025. Nearly 33,148 crore, which is nothing but over 92% were related to advances, which is nothing but, or which indicate the banks are very poor in managing the lending practices, or we can say vulnerabilities in the bank's lending practices. Usually, these loans are related to frauds, often involving diversion of funds and overvaluation of collateral, and also this involve misrepresentation of financial statements by borrowers, which is nothing but in a bank itself without knowing the bank employees. Borrowers are misleading or involved in this fraud activities. So now we'll see, frauds are happening, but how they are happening? Because we are using digital payment and also card payment and also internet payment, correct? So in that, where the majority frauds are happening, we'll see that major frauds in the banking sectors were happening using a digital payment. So in the digital payment, especially when we use internet banking or digital banking or card payment, in that cases we can see around 13,516 fraud cases. So these 13,516 cases involved 520 crore amount. We already compared based on the payment method how frauds are happening. Now let us see whether the fraud activities are more in public sector banks or in the private sector bank. Especially in the private sector banks, majority of the fraud cases are happening, which is here we can see the numbers. 59.4% of the cases, fraud cases are happening in the private sector. Total 14,233 incidents are happened in the private sector. However, the maximum value of fraud was reported by the public sector banks, which is nothing but the cases are more in the private sector, but public sector values, which is nothing but a monetary value is more in the public sector banks compared to private sector bank, even though cases are more, which accounted for rupees 25,667 crores. You can see the numbers here. So fraud activities are more in private sector banks, but the value is more in public sector banks. So now, how RBI is taking measure to control or mitigate these frauds? Recognizing the gravity of the situation, RBI has proposed multiple regulatory and supervisory interventions to mitigate frauds, and it started improving the operations of the banking sector, and it has enacted many laws and acts and policies. Many things RBI was enacted. So let us discuss how the RBI is taking a mitigating steps. First, supervisory framework. Yeah, RBI has enhanced its supervisory framework by strengthening the private banks and small finance bank supervisions. Especially RBI is concentrating more on digital services to ensure they remain robust under stress. So next, liquidity stress testing. To do this, RBI came up with a new cash flow based stress testing frameworks. Why this cash flow based stress testing framework? To assess the liquidity position of the bank under extreme condition. So using this method, RBI is reducing the systematic crisis, and it is started identifying the frauds. Also, using this method, RBI ensures that bank has to maintain some buffers and can meet any of the crisis situation. Third method, digital forensic readiness and monitoring. So RBI is working on framework to monitor the uptime and resilience of digital banking service in near real time. Correct? We are using online banking, we are using UPI, and also we are using cards to complete the payments. Correct? We are aiming to reduce the physical cash flow. Instead of digital payment method is promoted by the government itself. So to reach the customer, transparency on quality of the service is mandatory. That is why RBI is doing a digital forensic readiness and monitoring. Next, fraud risk governance. RBI is expected to tighten reporting mechanism, and also it started adopting internal controls, and also it involved automated ready flags for large advances. Regular audit work, high risk accounts are regularly audited, and also red flags. This red flags for those who take huge advances. These are all the steps taken by the RBI to reduce the frauds. But RBI only cannot reduce this frauding activity. That is why government also put a effort to reduce these type of activities along with the RBI. First one, Central Fraud Registry. We simply call it as CFR. It is a searchable online database. This will help banks track fraud history across financial institution before sanctioning new loans. Whether the customer involved in frauding activities in the banks or not, that will be checked before giving any loans to the, or before sanction any loans to the customer. That is what a central fraud registry will do. Second one is Fugitive Economic Offender Act 2018. This allow for confiscation of assets of absconding defaulters. For example, we can take Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi, correct? They took a huge loan, absconded without paying the loans, correct? Third one is strengthening SFIO and ED. SFIO is nothing but Serious Fraud Investigation Office. ED is nothing but Enforcement Directorate. Correct? They actively involved fraud activities for the investigation. To reduce the fraud activity, we have to strengthen these two organizations. Next, PSB reforms, public sector bank reforms, because that is where we can see the huge amount. So, governance reforms and improved accountability mechanisms can reduce this fraud activities. So, when it comes to GS3, we can see the economy topic, correct? In economy, it can be asked in mains and also in the prelims. Thank you for watching. If you find the video is useful, please share and subscribe.